Will you join me in prayer? Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Well, it seems a bit ironic this morning to be talking about meekness on Super Bowl Sunday. Meekness is always in short supply in the media hype surrounding the National Football League's championship game. Tonight's contest is the ultimate stage for establishing bragging rights for being the best of the best. The team that gets the Lombardi trophy at the end of tonight's contest will hold the title of being the greatest football team in the world, at least for the next 12 months. All week long, the media has been saturated with stories of players trash-talking their opponents, analysts arguing over which team will dominate which aspects of the game, commentators speculating over which player will win the most valuable player award. Today is all about establishing the best of the best. Who is the best quarterback, the best coach, the best receiving corps, the best pass defense, the best offensive line, the best running back. Earlier this week, Patrice and I watched a program that even rated the best television commercials from all previous Super Bowls. It was actually quite good. There is a reason that the Super Bowl has become the premier television event of the year. Last year, 111.5 million households tuned in to the game. Professional football players have become our modern-day gladiators. We revel in the battles that they fight. We claim for ourselves the victories that they win. We vicariously live out our own conquest narratives through them. It is ironic that we are focusing on meekness today, on Super Bowl Sunday. Here in America, we idolize power and control and dominance. We live in a culture that divides people into winners and losers. In every arena of life, we are preoccupied with the question, who is strong enough to impose their will on others? Who has the votes? Who has the wealth? Who has the social influence? Who has the seniority? Who has the inside knowledge? Who has the physical strength to get what they want? The desire to dominate permeates our political culture, where collaboration has become a sign of weakness and compromise equated with betrayal. It pervades our corporate culture, where hierarchical levels of authority and compensation reward those who are most effective power brokers, who curry favor to win influence, who put their own advancement ahead of the welfare of their colleagues. It suffuses our school classrooms, where pecking order is established through social alliances. Fashions designate tribal loyalties. Hallways divide territory into friendly and hostile turf. In our culture, we divide people into winners and losers. We view life as a zero-sum game. One person's gain is another person's loss. One group's advancement is another group's decline. One team's victory is another team's defeat. But today, on Super Bowl Sunday, we are reminded that Jesus commended meekness as one of the true sources of blessing in life. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Meekness doesn't get much airtime on Super Bowl Sunday. In our culture, meekness is associated with weakness. The meek are those who are too intimidated to speak up for themselves, too accommodating to stake their claim for what they want, too timid to impose their will on others. But the meekness that Jesus blessed is anything but weak. The meekness of Jesus was powerful enough to feed 5,000 hungry people, to cure 7 quarantined lepers, to raise Lazarus from the dead, to launch a movement among Galilean peasants that has persisted for 2,000 years and has reshaped the course of human history. The meekness that Jesus blessed is not weakness. It is strength devoted to serving others. Meekness is not the absence of power. Meekness is power given over to the service of others. The meek use power not to dominate, but to serve. The meek engage others not as competitors or rivals, but as brothers and sisters created in the image of God. When confronted with difference, the meek respond not with fear and animosity, but with curiosity. When faced with competing interests, the meek seek not to dominate or coerce, but to find common ground. When forming coalitions of influence, the meek seek not to advance their own self-interests, but to serve the common good. In order for any of us to claim the blessing of meekness that Jesus commended, we first have to opt out of our culture's win-lose dichotomy. Meekness requires a willingness to exert power on behalf of the powerless. It's about being salt and light and leaven for the good of others. It's about living with an awareness that our own welfare is intimately tied to the welfare of those who have the least. It's not about trickling down. It's about bottoming up. It's about making sure everyone has enough and no one takes too much. The strength of meekness comes from knowing that love does not insist on its own way. It comes from praying that prayer that Jesus prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane, not my will, but thy will be done. It comes from heeding the prophet Jeremiah's cry to seek the welfare of the city. Meekness is not weakness. Meekness is power dedicated to serving the common good. When we embrace the meekness that Jesus commended, then we inherit not just our own piece of the pie, not just a place to call our own, not just a little corner of the world, we inherit the earth. When our strength and our influence and our power is directed towards the welfare of the whole world, then the whole world becomes our world. There is no longer us and them. There is only us. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Today on Super Bowl Sunday, we are taking a moment to honor a person in our faith community who embodies the strength of meekness. Wes Kimball is a nurse anesthetist who is leaving this week on his 20th trip to Guatemala as part of a medical missionary team through an organization called Helps International. For months now, Wes has been busy behind the scenes organizing a team of 96 physicians, surgeons, nurses, and volunteers to set up, equip, and staff a temporary surgical hospital in the rural highlands of Guatemala. In Guatemala, half of the population lives in poverty, and those who can afford medical care can only find it in urban areas. For 20 years, Wes has been organizing medical teams to provide care to people who otherwise wouldn't have access to the help they need. When Wes was asked why he travels all the way to Guatemala instead of helping poor people right here in our country, he answered, people in our country will receive medical care. It may not be the same level of care as those who have good health insurance or those who have the financial means to pay for their treatment, but they won't be turned away. In Guatemala, people die because they don't have access to medical care. I don't know anyone who would call Wes Kimball weak. He's a big guy. So even if I didn't know him, I wouldn't call Wes Kimball weak. But those of us who are blessed to know Wes know that over the course of his lifetime, he has made a tremendous impact on his community through his work as an anesthetist in the operating room of the hospital right here in Battle Creek. In this church, as one of the principal leaders of the $6.5 million renovation project that completely transformed our gathering space. In his family as husband, father, grandpa. In his volunteer work with Helps International, every place that Wes's life is invested, Wes makes an impact, but never out of a desire to control or coerce or co-opt. That's what's made Wes so effective in organizing medical care for impoverished Guatemalan people. He doesn't dominate. He doesn't assume that he knows what people need. He doesn't impose his knowledge, his skill, his expertise on others. He offers what he has to share in service. He doesn't go down to Guatemala to convert people. He goes to be a servant in the service of those who come for healing. Today's Super Bowl contest is all about establishing who is the greatest. But Jesus said, the greatest among you will be your servant. And all who exalt themselves will be humbled. All who humble themselves will be exalted. This morning we're blessed to commission Wes Kimball for his 20th medical mission trip to Guatemala. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth.